Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Hello there, and welcome to RPG Maker Cola, your prime source for fizzy soda-filled content and game development and design opinions that mean very little in the grand scheme of things. I'm your host Benny, also known as Cash, also known as the Puzzle Snob, and this right here is a little mini-sode, a little morsel for you, something a little bit different. Usually we have a tighter schedule, perhaps a longer form episode, but this time it's all together. Perhaps think of it as like a tiny little morsel to go with that cool beverage, whereas instead of getting the usual 2 to 3, sometimes 4 developers in one room, we have just one person, just one. Peering it right back to the essential questions you, dear audience, have asked. Yes, I'm pointing at you. And also, of course, I'll put some of my own little personal questions in there. But first, you better know we have got a guest, because we always do. Except this time it's just one. And I know you're going to love this person because they're truly special and they create exciting games. You probably already know their name because it's in the title of this episode and you know this whole shindig by now, but I'm going to pretend like it's still under wraps. Our precious guest is a small indie game developer with a love for unique RPGs, such as the Devil Survivor Saga, Distia, Earthbound, the Shin Megami Tensei series, the Mario RPGs, and Off. They started work on games in 2016, participating in jams, and finished some little titles. However, it was only in January of 2017 that this developer started their first commercial title, and oh what a title it was. A game named Virgo vs. the Zodiac began development in January 2017, with a demo released in May of that same year, and a Steam page created in September 2018 until finally this gorgeous RPG was released on 13th of December 2019. Created with a studio named Moonana, Virgo vs. the Zodiac, a timed actions turn-based JRPG, was the studio's first commercial project. A sci-fi fantasy JRPG inspired by the Mario and Luigi RPG series and the Mother RPG series, in which you play as an obsessed villain. Yes, you heard that right, you're the bad one, and you're obsessed. The game features your traditional turn-based combat, but with real-time execution of moves, blocking, countering, and timing your attacks carefully, as well as predicting your foe's moves, is essential to succeed in Virgo's twisted and unforgiving cosmic quest to bring back the Golden Age, a period of peace, symmetry, and balance. Or so she thinks. In this galaxy where every action begs a reaction, you'll play as Virgo, also known as the Holy Queen, also known as Dreadful Queen, often called as such by heretics, bringing mayhem to the Zodiac realms and leaving a trail of stardust on the way, all to fit her excessively righteous worldview. This game looks gorgeous, but also boasts a complicated moral storyline that gives it flavor and uniqueness. The animations, the style, and the poise give this RPG a kick above the rest, with real-time elements of blocking, countering, and timing that give depth to gameplay. And now they're currently working on an extremely elegant turn-based cyberpunk action game with rhythm elements named Keylocker. Also another skeleton-based dungeon crawler called Osteoblasts, a game being released today, go and buy it. A game made by Anglerman on RPG Maker, an animator who is part of Moonana Studios. This person's working on this as guidance, but it's mostly Anglerman's project. But we're going to talk about these projects later in detail, but without further delay, I'd like to introduce this incredibly talented developer, the one, the only, NaNa.
Hello everyone, I am NaNa, and I am the first alpaca game developer in the world, and I did a bunch of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today.
Yes, the very first alpaca game developer, and wow, it's fantastic to meet you. Thanks for being here and answering all the community's questions. Usually in your regular episode, we'll do some other sections first, but I figured, why wait? Let's dive right into these questions. Let's dive into the question box. Welcome, one and all, to The Question Box, a mysterious little segment where RPG Maker community users ask questions related to game development and design that we probably don't know the answers to, but we'll try. Our first question comes from a little Cash from the RPG Maker Cola podcast. How did you come about making games, they ask. And if it's RPG Maker, how did you discover RPG Maker? What's your story?
Contrary to a lot of indie developers out there, I have not dreamed of making games since forever. This is a recent dream for me. I was a professional quitter in life. I used to quit everything. I quit 3 colleges actually before doing what I do today. Of course, I was always playing games, but just the thought of making games by myself never crossed my mind. The game development teams were always huge when I checked credits, and when time came to choose what to do with my life, I had to go to public college since my family wasn't really well off. So they don't have game development courses available there. I'd probably choose that one if they had it. In the middle of all that, I played the game Light, and I thought it looked fairly simple structurally wise. And since I had met Anglerman, who was working with a platformer before, I thought maybe this is something I can try out. I'd say that was the moment everything changed in my life, and I wanted to make something like that. Light was made in a different engine, but I've met RPG Maker like that.
I've never heard of the game Light. I'll have to check that out. Interesting. Alphanumeric from Unique Indie RPGs asks, my question is, what was your biggest inspiration for starting to make video games?
I'd say Light did it for me. I played mainly tactical games before like Disgaea, so that was something I wouldn't go on my own and try to do, because it seemed too overwhelmingly complicated. I'm a very realistic kind of person, so when I saw Light, it gave me a sense of reach that I didn't have before. Like I can maybe do this. Of course I didn't know then it would be way more complex than I thought, but that sense of reach inspired me greatly to start things out.
What were your favorite kinds of games and what other media elsewise that I suppose inspired you to create?
My favorite game genres are tactics, action, turn-based JRPGs, and dungeon crawlers. My favorite developer might be From Software, and my favorite game from them is Bloodborne. What inspires me the most is how From Software strives for cohesiveness within their concept, without caring what people might think if their game sounds too convoluted to some. What matters is their concept and how their world functions together towards that concept. Everything else is for the player to discover. I really appreciate that, because it's very easy to lose your concept by trying to make your game more comprehensive to the masses or more appealing. I also like their ability to finish games and continue doing them, because you can do one game and then kind of disappear, or you can just continue to make more games, like I finished one, what is the next, and continue to strive and go for it. My backlog of games to make is huge, so I hope I have enough lifetime spent to do them.
Our next question comes from Punkit from the Unique Indie RPGs Discord, who asks, love the way Virgo vs. the Zodiac looks. I'm a huge fan of the art style and color in games and in general, so I wanted to ask, what was your approach towards picking the palettes of the individual areas and the game in general?
We didn't want Virgo to feel too traditional in the elements, fire, earth, water, air, as it is in astrology, which is why we have chosen instead the damage calculations to be based on the zodiac qualities, cardinal, fixed and mutable. But since those were weird aspects not very easily understood by players, the best way to fix that is with something that actually is easily understood, which is color coding. The more you color code your visuals to the base philosophy of the game and lore system, you become obsessed with making everything fit into that, or into the fourth quality, which is ruled by destiny above all others. In there you find the grey and orange stuff, which is why the Golden Age is so important for Virgo herself. It's so important, it's perceived above what rules the world itself, as it's the destiny she must reach. The theme of the game is fate and how unbending it can be after all.
Say that was kind of like the visual style of Virgo. How about Keylocker?
I think for Keylocker, however, I got a different approach, as I wanted to make cyberpunk in a more nostalgic format. I think I really like the historical stuff and the whys of the universe I create. So when thinking of a pushing forward future, I thought of how the past paved that way and how history allowed that future. So a lot of Keylocker's design is fixed on getting the inspiration from the times where cyberpunk as a genre emerged and what was the fashion like in those times. Like how the main character in Neuromancer uses a windbreaker that allows for protection of rain, as well as is breathable enough for the occasional harsh and hot weather, which was a staple of 80s fashion as well. For palettes for Keylocker, I tried to do the same as Virgo, but taking more of an artistic liberty. A technique I've been using is taking screenshots of maps to adjust the palettes with all the map elements together so they mesh together better. It's also important to choose colors based on the sentiment you want to pass for each scene. So like the beginning of Keylocker is in the desert to show how harsh is the weather, as well as how warm can the environment and the people around Bobo be, because they don't live in great conditions, so they gotta stick together, and the palette tries to emulate that mood.
Facsimile from Twitter asks, where did the idea for the story of Virgo come from? And Keylocker, if that's not giving away too much.
For Virgo, it was something I've been thinking for a long time. What RPG class would each zodiac sign be? And that pushed the idea of the sign Virgo being a paladin to clean the world of sin and heresy, but not as a medieval Christian paladin, because classic astrology is Greek, so a hoplite paladin anime girl Virgo personified was born in my head. And after that, all other zodiacs came to life in a boom, and their story rose from their interactions in a somewhat Greek mythology-inspired cosmos. I also think if anyone did a game about astrology, putting the Earth zodiacs as main characters wouldn't be something normal. I think the more straightforward, obvious main characters would be the fire signs. So I wanted to explore with this unlikely hero-villain type of character. For Keylocker, the idea came from this Portuguese author, José Saramago, of trying to take out from society something that is essential for it. In his novel called Blindness, he makes the whole of society blind at almost the same time and discusses how blindness can affect everyone's daily life, which is a really cool and extreme concept. Of course, music isn't as extreme as that, but I wanted to explore this idea of taking away something that is so essential for people's lives. Then, while conceptualizing for Keylocker, I've spent some days without listening to music, and it was quite painful, I can assure.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be painful. Yeah, Star Mage from the RPG Maker Cola Discord asks, hello NaNa, why did you pick Virgo as the main character out of the 12 zodiacs? Do you have significant astrological placements in Virgo?
This will probably sound weird, but I have no significant astrological placements in Virgo whatsoever, and no one on the team is a Virgo actually.
Flu F, or Kapu Kapu, from Twitter asks, what is your process like for writing dialogue? I can't remember ever seeing so many wacky or great ideas in one place.
I know this is not an ideal answer, but for Virgo I believe I've done a bunch of dialogues while sleepy. I was always the one behind on deadlines, so I would just go and wrap a bunch of dialogue together on the go while playing the game, and checking which interactions were missing. Besides games, I actually consume a lot of random media like TV shows, anime, movies, books. I read a lot. I think there's just excellent content everywhere, if you're willing to go and search for it. And I consume things very fast. My mind is always on a race against itself, so I think all that stuff just sits accumulated there with time, and it has to burst somewhere. And that's how the dialogues formed. Besides that, I'd open the game and walk around and think like, why are you here, box? What is your goal? Did the cows bring you here, or are you a box of imported goods? Maybe you came from this random and specific realm, maybe you're just chilling because you like the view, and I've rambled to myself like that for every single thing in the game. I think if a character has a backstory, why not give a box a backstory too? Isn't that what enriches the environment of someone else's home? You enter there and there's like a bottle of water in a really strange location. It's there for a reason. Someone put it there, I assume. It can't walk. That's how I approach things. And if you question yourself like this for everything, if you don't put it somewhere, you might go crazy. I wrote the dialogue so I don't go mad.
Yeah, it's good motivation, not going crazy, but hard to do nowadays. Harmless from the RPG Maker Cola Discord asks, "Hi NaNa, what's your zodiac sign? Bonus points if you tell us your moon and ascending signs."
Oh, I can tell my whole astrological chart. That's not an issue. I'm a Taurus with Aries ascendant, Scorpio moon, Mercury in Aries, Venus in Gemini, Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Leo, and Saturn in Aquarius. No Virgos in my chart, as I said before.
Moribund Medium, or Morimedi from Twitter, hello, asks, "I first saw Virgo vs. the Zodiac on FIG, and I am in awe of how you saw it to completion solo. Which was most difficult, the coding, the artwork, the writing, or the marketing? And for future projects, would you consider outsourcing that work, or recommend the same sort of action for aspiring developers?"
I'd say marketing is the hardest thing to do, always. For people who work with arts and crafts, it's harder to know what the general public wants and how to manipulate these invisible algorithms for your own visibility. It's all a huge metagame which requires a lot of effort and has immense depth to it. I always drew pictures and wrote stories since I was a kid, so those skills have been developing throughout my life and were less of a hassle to deal with. I'd absolutely love to have someone dealing with all of the marketing stuff so I could focus on art and writing, which is what I feel like I'm actually good at, not Twitter posts and being funny on the internet.
Gord Clay asks, "I'd love to know, where do you get the inspiration for your character designs? I've seen some of the wackier characters, especially from Keylocker, and I'm impressed with every new design I see. They're so fun."
In Virgo, to design a character, it was a simple mix between a real historical nation with a time period in mind and the zodiac representation of the sign, with a big touch of trying to make them look cute, with the colors of the quality they represent and stuff. For Keylocker, specifically, it has a lot more influences than Virgo. Depending on which character you're talking about, I'd have some references from contemporary streetwear, mostly of Asian countries, like a very strong Chinese streetwear and haute couture influence, with a constant hint of both Japanese and Arabic influences for cultural stuff, as well as the retro future feeling of the 80s and 90s. When I was a kid, I consumed a lot of 80s material because in the 90s, everything I watched on TV that were from foreign countries were actually made and published in the 80s. So the only things from the outside world I could watch were already a decade old when they got here. That makes it a bit more nostalgic for me to make Keylocker because of all the strange hairstyles and clothing styles of the 80s and the 90s. Of course, the basic cyberpunk and sci-fi works of this time are also present in many places, but those works are also inspired by the fashion of the time, which I draw strongly from. I prefer to draw inspiration from the roots than from derivative works. All of that is required so all characters are unique, as I think that suffices the cyberpunk energy of do-it-yourself and style over substance. And considering the story itself is set in Saturn, many non-human creatures could exist as aliens as well, so they can have many weird clothing styles.
A user named Huihawa from Twitter asks, "How did you get information about astrology, or should I say astrology, or how did you come to like astrology?"
I started to search astrology before working on games. I came across astrology when I was in psychology college, which I quit back then. There was this guy called Carl Jung that studied personality archetypes, and I was doing a research on him and came across like deep astrological chart stuff that was also used in his research to develop his archetypal system. I thought that was very interesting as a psychology student that was obsessed with how the human mind operates, so I went pretty deep. My field of study back then was Hellenistic astrology, if you want to give that a research, but I know a little of Vedics as well. I just don't know much about the modern astrological horoscope stuff that deals with daily life predictions. That's not something of my interest. I think if you start by studying your own astrological chart, it helps a lot for you to understand how it operates.
Interesting. They also ask, my intention is to make fan cartoons. To what extent do you allow secondary creations based on media you've created?
You are absolutely free to make fan cartoons as long as you give credit to the original Virgo vs the Zodiac creators. That would be us at Moonana, and as long as you follow the characters' outfits guidelines from the original designs.
Nice. Create those original designs, everybody. Go for it. Flair Blitzed from Twitter asks, what's the inspiration behind the alpacas in Virgo versus the Zodiac? They're so fluffy and cute, but in contrast to the Zodiacs and the other creatures, the alpacas feel a tad out of place. Thank you, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year.
Alpacas will rule the world. It's just a matter of time. My place in the video game industry is merely as a messenger for the alpaca gods, as they have chosen me as their voice. They speak through me, and it is my goal to spread their teachings. And they have taught me to make as many alpacas you can in every single game you make. I haven't created the rules. I can just follow them.
Yeah, you heard it from NaNa. Just alpacas everywhere. That's it's just what you have to do. Neomao2002 from Twitter asks, my question is a bit strange, but still, I love both Virgo and TVRUHH, and I wanted to ask, how did you get to know Viral, and how long have you known them for? Because dang, when you work together, things just go to another level.
I found Virals on Tumblr back in 2017 with the game dev tag. I followed him because of his UI work. He was showing up some of his game's interface, which was fantastic. I knew that interface was something that not all programmers know how to do well, since it has to do with game feel, and I needed someone who wouldn't be scared by the weird design choices I do for the assets. Now I'm aware that the mathematical magic that Virals does is really weird and unique, and it makes for such snappy interfaces that are just good to use, so I hope to work with him forever. Also, as a tactics player, I know the importance of good interface, and I wanted the interface to be that one aspect that is very good and doesn't delay the gameplay or hinders the gameplay experience. Virals does interface programming work for us, as well as minigames such as the shoot 'em up minigame for Virgo and the rhythm and hacking minigames for Keylocker.
Yeah, interface is extremely important. And they also ask, what is your nationality?
I am Brazilian. I come from Rio de Janeiro, the city with the giant guy with the open arms.
The giant guy with the open arms. Nice. Deficiency Productions from Unique Indie RPGs asks, here's my question. What's your most valuable tip for making an appealing UI?
For UI, you must want to make it aesthetics and functional at the same time. If it's just functional, it would only be a square or rectangular kind of box, but if it's aesthetics, it will be that same box with a weird border, which makes it aesthetics and functional. I also try to connect everything if I can. I don't like UI that's just floating around or not aligned. So if a box stops at a certain point, I'll make the others around it aligned to it, or connected by a line or invisible line. If you think aesthetics can be a term that is too open-ended for you, then maybe thinking to yourself, how can I make this box look just weird enough and connected to my game's general design to still remain functional? I think that helps. And if you're doing like a more classical look to your interface and looking weird doesn't really fit your build, then try to add your design choices in the borders of your boxes. It will make a simpler looking box look better and more connected to your game's design choices. I'd also recommend doing the heavy work menu tab first. For me that would be equipment, because then you can copy the boxes from there to your other tabs to make the menu look more authentic and cohesive.
Right. UI is extremely important, and it's good to, balance out the aesthetics and the functionality. I agree. So that seems to end the community Q&A section of the podcast. Awesome questions, everyone. You've done very well. And now that we've done that, let's go into our next section, the deep dive. Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to quickly dive deep rather, into a particular project. Or two actually today. And now we know that NaNa has developed Virgo vs. the Zodiac and is currently working on an extremely elegant turn-based cyberpunk action game called Keylocker. But first, we'll be talking about another game, Osteoblasts, a game made by Anglerman on RPG Maker, an animator who is part of Moonana Studios. NaNa is working on this as guidance, but this is mostly Anglerman's project. In Osteoblasts, you play as a spooky, scary skeleton raised from the dead by a mysterious cat witch in a journey to find purpose. Upon choosing a class, you go on frightening adventures battling your nemesis, the dogs, who unburied you from the depths below. You'll be faced with various quests, meet friendly skeletons, travel to spine-tingling dungeons, and fight monsters to get stronger. The entire world has class-specific quests and several randomized elements that will change as you visit them again. But beware, as a sinister skeleton wandering about, not everyone will accept you. The dead aren't as welcome as they should be, and it's not even Halloween yet. Osteoblast is available now on 12th of February 2021 when the podcast is being released, so go buy it right now if this has piqued your interest already. Just go buy it. So, NaNa, this is a project you've been working on, but not necessarily the main developer of. Tell us a bit more about Osteoblasts. What type of game is it, and what can we expect?
It's a game very much focused on replayability. You can take different paths to get to different places, and with all the classes and items, you'll be certain to have new playthroughs each time. Compared to Virgo, you can expect it to be a lot less in your face and a lot more obtuse, but in a good way. Anglerman cited being more inspired by some Western RPG aspects, more so than JRPG ones, like the randomized loot being a core component of your character's build, and a lot of the randomization in general, which had no place in Virgo, a game made entirely on deterministic choices, except for critical chance. Osteoblast takes that philosophy entirely on the opposite end. It's got RNG for pretty much everything. Dodging, countering, critting, getting special effects to trigger enemy encounters, randomization even inside the same encounters, random items, random general events to make new things appear, all with the variations per class and per level stat distribution makes the game progress very different from Virgo. It's got a weird story too that makes more sense the less you understand it.
Yeah, that randomization element sounds like it's one of the central selling points of the game. I'm interested already. This game has been described as a dungeon crawler skeletal RPG about skeletons by skeletons and for skeletons. It's a single character RPG with multiple classes, items, abilities, and spells. As for story, is it quite an in-depth story-based RPG, or is it more about the gameplay? What would you say about the depth and type of gameplay in Osteoblasts?
It's a lot more about the gameplay and exploration than the story, that's for certain. Osteoblast has a bit of dialogue here and there, but most of your time will be spent in battles and trying to find your way in the world. There's plenty of people to talk to and things to do, but those are often optional. The depth of the battle system and character building system is all around the 6 stats, and all of them, except for survival, can be used both offensively and defensively, depending on the situation. which means you won't waste points even on stats you want to use offensively, like strength for a mage build. It will still reduce damage taken, so it has a big leverage on how you can level your character. There's plenty of hybrid attacks and skills that bumps build variety to the extreme. Anglerman even managed to squeeze a ton of hidden areas and things that seem tiny at first but play a big role later on.
And you say you helped a little with dialogues and guidance. How does this game approach story? Were there some challenges of story that you needed to help out with?
It was mainly with Virgo vs Zodiac characters that made cameos on it, like Witch Cat or Medusa. I helped a lot with wording and how to express some ideas, where I admit I haven't even seen all of the text in this game, given how well Anglerman hid some things. The game's approach to story is very different as well, being more focused on you going after the story. NPCs you'll find that might seem really simplistic at first in fact may have a lot going on for them, be it for a different class quest, or they will change their perception of you. If you have this or that item, there's the same care put in Virgo in regards to changing NPC dialogue based on some actions you did, like killing certain bosses, make some people say other stuff. It's pretty neat in these details, I hope everyone finds them.
So, Anglerman and Electrobear created the game's visuals and music respectively, both of which are incredibly immersive and high quality. They're also both part of the game development studio called Moonana, having worked on Virgo vs. Zodiac as well. Now, what are the most valuable traits you see in Anglerman and Electrobear that make them so useful as collaborators? And also, do you see more projects being created in the future that have them as the lead developers?
I wish to continue to work with them forever if I can. They're very good people, and I think that their ability to be able to just redo assets until it's perfect and until it fits my vision for the games is what makes their work so commendable. Everyone on the team has a bit of that, I think, because everyone just wants to make their best. So I think I wish to work with Anglerman, Ben, and Virals for a long time. If they so wish to work with me, of course. We have a new addition to the team, Samates, and if she wishes to continue to sing to us, we could really use her opera energy for some future projects we have planned. I'm just very proud of Anglerman for being able to finally release his game Osteoblasts. He's been working on this for ages, and it's so fascinating to see it coming live with the help of all the testers and of Electrobear on the fantastic soundtrack.
Yes, and I'm excited too. I want to play this. I'll be playing this today, actually, on stream. For those who wish to buy Osteoblasts, go find it on Steam and give it a go. It's available right now. The full price is $7.99 USD with a launch discount of 25%. There's no special code or anything for RPG Maker Cola, but it's fine. It's just $5.99 on launch on Steam. Go and check that out, Osteoblasts. I recommend it highly. Let's talk a little bit about your upcoming game, Keylocker. Actually, in a silent world where music has been prohibited, B0B0 will serenade her rebellion against the vicious authorities by banding together with the jukebot drummer Rocket to shatter the strings of fate and sing the melody of freedom in this unforgiving rhythm turn-based JRPG. So, Virgo vs. Zodiac is a fun and wacky game with timed actions, with surreal environments and cute characters inspired by the Mario and Luigi RPG series and the Mother series. So how is Keylocker different? What can we expect from Keylocker in terms of gameplay, atmosphere, and tone?
Keylocker is certainly more serious in tone, but it will still be packed with jokes. Keylocker has this big decision we made quite early on to not have a battle/word context as separated things. We wanted to make it seamless, really immersive in that aspect, with battles and word being a single context, also to blur the lines between the worldly daily life and combat to the death. since the universe itself is a lot more harsh. The character Virgo was also very powerful as a zodiac, capable of doing many things before the game starts, having attributes of a goddess, and fighting other powerful beings, when Bobo is much more down to earth and underdog kind of character, like a regular human, than Virgo was. She's not special by traditional means. I mean, Bobo's not a goddess, which makes Keylocker a journey from the bottom of society to the top. For Bobo to really rip apart hierarchy altogether, whereas Virgo was about starting at the moral high ground and descending into madness. Keylocker is literally set inside a huge tube, so your path is physically up until you reach the atmosphere of the planet Saturn, going through all the cities and roads and deserts and sewers along the way. We also heavily improved the timed hits aspect of Keylocker, making it more seamless and precise based on the actual animation, more so than the arbitrary timed hit button above the character's head. And if you hated Virgo's timed hit, the game will even feature a no timed hit mode for players who would rather roll the dice for getting a perfect or a parry, etc.
Interesting, that addition of the no timed hit mode. I think there will be great accessibility for the game. Keylocker, it seems to be this massive mishmash of various topics and themes. You can either befriend citizens or betray them, hacking into their profiles to acquire resources or to change the course of the story with multiple endings to boot. And there's also the danger meter, where the all-ears church police will certainly come after devious denizens who don't respect the law of silence. There's so much going on here. So what made you come up with the idea for Keylocker? What influenced you to make the story? And does it have some special significance to you?
I think music has a special meaning in everyone's life, right? Everyone loves to hear music, and it's that language that everyone speaks. I feel as if music can unite people together, and I've met so many folks from different countries who speak completely different language from my own, that it means a lot to me in that sense of connection. So being ripped out of that, it seemed painful. I wanted to share that concept into a whole game to discuss how oppression can take a toll on everyone's lives, from the perspective of a girl who was born with music within herself. And I hope to explore various types of characters in this setting, from those in the low to those in the highest societal positions, and how it affects them. In general, Keylocker was an idea from many years back. It was actually my first game idea. Back then it was a cyberpunk visual novel. I've had this idea probably in 2015-16. I gave up on making it since I realized I was really bad at making visual novels. So we revamped the idea, changed the main character and basically everything, and here we are today. The old main character is still present in the current story of Keylocker. I'd also like to mention the book The Wandering Earth as a strong influence for the tube idea, and also other cyberpunk books like Sinners, Snow Crash, Neuromancer, and Infomocracy.
The Wandering Earth, I think there's a film based on that, but I think it's like a loose adaptation. There's lots of things to be proud of, but what is the thing you'd say you're most proud of about Keylocker? What do you think's been going well?
I'd like to say the visuals are coming out a lot better than I expected. The jump from top-down to isometric perspectives and the lack of a more abstract overworld versus detailed barrels makes Keylocker such a beautiful game for me. Sometimes I just spend hours making many maps because I want to walk around all these places. There are some huge buildings and the sense of scale is insane. The combat's feeling really good as well so far. I also like how it seems like since we have been working for Keylocker as a team from the start, we have been more connected. So the workflow has been great and things fail less before they're ready, up and running. Instead of doing things fast because we're on deadlines, we just do them faster because we're more used to our own workflow. It became a second nature to us. I think that surely will be transferred to Keylocker through the cohesiveness of its word design.
Right. The workflow is like super like streamlined and stuff. It's really nice to hear. Despite that streamlined process, have there been any like challenge or challenges you've faced, and how have you overcome them? What's been the greatest challenge?
That would probably be the music and its importance. Considering it's tied strictly with the game's lore and about music being forbidden, you can say having the music sound just right is really a huge focus of attention. All the music used in battle and in the shows also requires a lot of work to get it right. And now with Pisamata singing for us, there is even the added work of writing lyrics in the game's own language. I write them in English, then translate them to the game's language, which is based on Finnish. And I'm a Brazilian Portuguese speaker. Animations also took a huge leap compared to Virgo in complexity. NPC idols are longer and more intricate, they can change animations while talking, and the game scenes are more visual now because of that. All the NPCs you can talk to will have portraits as well, making all the art extra time consuming as well. I think this will probably be a longer development time than Virgo, but not too long as I can't spend too much time on just one game.
There is no projected release date for Keylocker yet, but just keep an eye on this by putting this game on your Steam wishlist. And also follow NaNa on Twitter under the username Moonana_. That is Moonana_. Yeah, thank you for being such a great guest, NaNa. It's been a privilege.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and for being patient with me, and thank you for creating this special episode for me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Would you have anything you'd like to plug? Say things you'd like our listeners to know about?
I'd like to urge everyone to check Virgo's game. It's called The Void Rains Upon Her Heart, and it's a shoot 'em up, and it looks really cool, and it plays very nicely as well. Also, our singer for Keylocker, the voice of Bobo, Psamates, has recently worked on Pathless, the game. I think she did a fantastic job. She also has a ton of cool covers on her YouTube and should be worshipped properly.
Go check out The Void Rains Upon Her Heart, and go check out Pathless and Samathi's, their cool covers on YouTube. I hope I got that name right. Yeah, thank you so much, NaNa, and the listener too, for listening to RPG Maker Cola. Anything final to say, NaNa?
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the word of the alpacas. A blessing from the alpacas to everyone in the world. No matter what happens in the future, the alpacas will have your back. Alpacas for world domination.
Yes, alpacas for world domination. World domination. This has been RPG Maker Cola. Goodbye, everybody.